Imagine a gray sky, a control room trembling, loose papers drifting through the air like falling snow, and alarms blinking red in the growing darkness. And in the center of this collapsing world, a lone man stands perfectly still, his glasses reflecting the dying glow of the monitors. His name was Masao Yoshida. This was a man who did not wield a sword or magic or any extraordinary power. He wielded only one thing: duty. But sometimes, duty is the greatest power of all. This is the true story, no myth, no exaggeration, of the man who faced a disaster capable of swallowing an entire nation, and stood firm. On the 11th of March of the year 2011, Japan's fate changed in a single, catastrophic moment. A mega-earthquake, a magnitude of 9.1, struck with such force that it literally shifted the planet's axis. But the true horror was yet to come. The scene cuts from the fractured earth to a silent, rising wall of water, a tsunami, in some places taller than 15 meters, gliding forward like a monstrous shadow over the land. It crushed towns, it obliterated ports, it erased roads, and finally, it reached its final, most devastating target, the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. Inside, the world descended into chaos. Lights flickered and died. Pipes burst open, blinding engineers with scalding steam. The critical emergency generators, the last line of defense, were swallowed whole and drowned beneath the black, surging water. With their power source gone, the cooling systems failed. One by one, the reactors began heating uncontrollably, ticking like atomic time bombs. And again, the camera of history finds MasaoYoshida.com, steady, absorbing the unfolding chaos with a single, focused breath. The pressure inside Reactor 1 was climbing like a heartbeat in a state of pure panic. Temperatures were spiking to levels never imagined. The nuclear fuel rods, no longer submerged in cooling water, began to dry out, inching closer to a full-scale meltdown. The outside world was screaming. Government officials shouted through phones, "Evacuate immediately." The headquarters of the Tokyo Electric Power Company TEPCO repeated the order, "Everyone must leave the site." It's too dangerous, but Yoshida just closed his eyes. For a moment, all the sound dimmed. He saw, in his mind's eye, the map of Japan, and the radioactive shadow that would spread across it, poisoning it for generations, if all 3 reactors were to melt down. He then opened his eyes, and with the full weight of his nation on his shoulders, he gave his answer: "We stay." A short, deafening pause. Another breath. "If we run, Japan will fall." Then, the world turned white. Boom! Reactor 1 exploded. The blast was colossal, sending fragments of the building rocketing into the clouds. A shockwave ripped like an energy blast through the plant's corridors, throwing people to the ground. Engineers stumbled through the thick, choking smoke. The piercing shriek of radiation sensors filled the air, screaming a warning of invisible death. And then, another explosion. This time, it was Reactor 3. A massive, dark plume erupted, filling the sky with radioactive material. This is not a scene from a movie. This is not fiction. This happened. With the conventional cooling systems completely dead, Yoshida knew what had to be done. There was only one option left, a desperate last-ditch effort. They had to inject seawater directly into the reactors to cool them down manually. The very ocean that had brought this destruction upon them now had to become their last lifeline. But as his teams prepared, another order came crackling through from TEPCO headquarters, a direct command from his superiors: "Stop injecting seawater immediately. The salt will corrode the reactors permanently." They were more concerned with saving the company's assets than with preventing a global catastrophe. For a moment, Yoshida's hand gripped a railing, trembling with a mixture of fury and disbelief. He turned to his inner circle, his most trusted engineers, and whispered the words that would defy his bosses and change the course of history: "Ignore the order." The sound returned with full force. Workers scrambled into action. Heavy hoses were dragged across debris-strewn ground. Fire engines roared to life, their pumps straining. And finally, a stream of seawater began pouring into the overheating reactors, the only thing standing between Japan and total collapse. The workers on site, who would become known as the Fukushima 50, rotated in shifts like soldiers on a battlefield. They were exposed to dangerously high levels of radiation. Some coughed violently, some collapsed from exhaustion, some cried silently behind their masks. But Yoshida walked among them, his presence a steady, calming force in the middle of a nuclear hurricane. "Every minute we hold the line," he told them, his voice firm. "We are saving countless lives." He was their general, and this was their Thermopylae. In the years that followed, official investigations would reveal just how close they came to the abyss. Reactor 2, in particular, came terrifyingly, whisper close to exploding. If it had, its containment vessel would have breached, releasing an unstoppable radioactive cloud. Tokyo, a metropolis of nearly 30 million people, could have faced a forced, permanent evacuation. It would have been a national nightmare beyond all imagining, the end of Japan as they knew it. On the control room monitors, the gauges for Reactor 2 were swinging wildly. Steam burst through weakened steel seals. Engineers, armed with little more than fire hoses and sheer will, fought to keep it stable. Yoshida watched the readings, sweat gathering on his brow, his face illuminated by the red warning lights. He wasn't just fighting a machine, he was wrestling with a god of destruction. And then, finally, the temperature began to fall. Just a few degrees at first, but it was enough. A soft, hopeful glow spread across the dashboard as the numbers stabilized. Music seems to swell in the silence of their hearts. They had bought Japan another hour and then another day. In the weeks and months that followed, the immediate crisis was slowly, painstakingly contained. Japan and the world began to breathe again. The shadow of catastrophe receded, but Masao Yoshida, he began to fade. The immense stress and the radiation he undoubtedly absorbed had taken their toll. In the year 2012, he was diagnosed with cancer of the esophagus. He fought it with the same quiet determination he had shown at Fukushima, but it was a battle he could not win. On the 9th of July 2013, at the age of 58, Masao Yoshida died. An image of his empty office chair lingers, a cup of tea left untouched on the desk, his hard hat resting silently on a hook. In one of his final interviews, when hailed as a hero, he simply said, "I am not a hero. There was simply work that had to be done." The frame closes on his silhouette, a single man standing against the backdrop of the damaged, silent plant, a man who gave his final years to buy his country time. History remembers the disasters, but it often forgets the people who stood in their way and stopped them from becoming worse. Masao Yoshida was a man with no special powers, no advanced weapons, no shining armor. He had only duty, courage, and an unbreakable will. He was the man who stood against the impossible, and did not flinch. If you want more real stories of the hidden figures who changed the fate of our world, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell, because the next story we have for you is about a single letter, written by a forgotten scientist, that secretly launched a race to build a weapon so powerful it could end all life on Earth, and the spy who tried to stop it. You won't want to miss it. Thank you for watching.